morning, uh, Monday morning, the 14th of December, 2020. Um, Still on, I don't do too much this time of year, but think about next year's kinetic sculpture race, usually this time of year, and I'm knee deep in creating or welding or grinding and shaping and re-engineering or whatever on the Hoosier Daddy. And well, this year she's all I suppose I could fine tune it, but I mean, if she's been up race ready up on blocks for over a year, so can't help but fantasize about a sculpture that I want to do in the future. Sorry about the flashes of light while I transition from one section of my shop to the next. But I got my brain working on trying some ideas for an all-wheel drive kind of mid-body steer sculpture where there's, in this I just didn't have enough Lego pieces to do the full lot, but this is a 12-seater. You can see I've got a bank of 3 seats right here, and here's their pedals. You can see their pedals move. Hopefully I'm getting that, yeah. And they all pedal this wheel, so if I lift this up, see their pedals turn, and that's the same all the way around. So it's all-wheel drive and got a lot of driveline redundancy. And you'll see this hangy bit right here. That's actually a water drive. It's probably really dark in here. Sorry about that. I didn't really think about lighting, but that water gear can go up and down and propel us. And then of course the roof over the riders here is actually the float gear. It plugs onto the side here. It's hard to do with one hand, so you just have to trust me on this one. But all of these kind of go from up here to down here, click, and then there'll be a pontoon and then a pontoon and the same thing on the other side. So just like Hoosier Daddy as far as the hardware. And then there's a main deck you can walk. So when the float gear's all down and you're in the water and you want to get from one end of the machine to the other, you can just walk on this. So we'll be able to deliver drinks to the crew and food and take stuff, and kind of, I'm thinking we'll have a barnacle seat in here somewhere, probably right in here. And just dreaming, wishing I had a budget, back to me again. For those of you that don't know, I'm dealing with a diagnosis of colon cancer. Let's see this way is a good way to go. And it's been a year or more since diagnosis, stage 2. The places in my body, they were able to get to with radio treatment and chemo, and then chemo again, and then we were supposed to do surgery because of COVID. Basically, I'm just going to shorten this up. Because of COVID, they had to postpone my potential surgery, which was about this time last year, actually. They were already scheduling, well in advance of me being, when I'm in chemo, they're talking to me about in the future, and we're going to schedule this surgery, blah, blah, blah. So I knew well in advance. So so now they're going, even deeper into what we're all in code blue lockdown, or not lockdown, but safety, stay at home, shelter at home mindset, hopefully, and not freaking out because we have to wear masks still. But yeah, so that's kind of impacted me. So I'm feeling fine. I'm like 99% me. The plumbing they want to remove is working fine right now, but there's the fear of the future, not having the surgery, having deceased cancer in my body just hanging out, worries the doctors, and they think that, you know, it's going to go for, you know, the usual scenario. And what I've seen on YouTubes and all that stuff, watching people in similar situations, going deep into this and finding that, yeah, you get potential for lung cancer, liver cancer, which you thought, you know, the doctor says if I thought colon cancer was bad, those are, you know, pretty much end of game time when it starts to metastasize and move around. So we're keeping chemo going, where my CEA has been way in the, you know, safe zone for months. At its tops, well, when they first diagnosed me, it was 55. Then it went up to 78 or so, I think, while, you know, the cancer was being broken up, and that protein's just scooting around my body, not because the cancer's winning, but because it's a kind of like a false high from, you know, the high number from the cancer being broke up. And boy, I could tell when it was being broke up. I wouldn't wish radiation on my worst enemy. You know, the caution to anybody out there who's ever considered getting a colonoscopy, just because there are people 36 years old getting what I've got, and I waited far too late to get a colonoscopy. So I'm not a doctor, but I highly recommend, even at a young age, that, you know, the thing that sucks about a colonoscopy is the prep. Otherwise, you're sedated when it happens. The worst you'll have happen is they're pulling the camera out of your body. You might wake up, and for me, when it happened to me, I could tell something was on down there. I thought like I had a big hard turd in me, but no, that was the camera. And they actually, as they were backing out, I could see out of the corner of this eye, because of the way the you know, the display they were looking at when I'm laying on my side, I could just see it out of the corner of this eye. I couldn't move my body, and it was just a brief second is all I remember of just seeing the camera. And then I think one of them recognized that I was coming to, and I don't know. Anyhow, so the prep sucks, yeah, because just be prepared. You know, move your TV into the bathroom, or your, you know, your puzzle table, or whatever COVID activity that you can transport into the bathroom while you become a human faucet of spew. That Maalox stuff is just murder. And, you know, nothing, yeah. So anyhow, back to right now I'm in a holding pattern, but normally, like I say, this time of year I'd be mad building, but I have no budget for this. Plus, I'm just now feeling like I can handle banging around on stuff. I mean, I've done a few hours work here and there, but I don't do 8-hour days anymore. I'm working my way up. You know, sometimes the cure is worse than the ailment, and right now, yeah, but yeah, soon I'll be back on. Right now, I have a port in my chest. Speaking of that port, I kind of feel like, I don't know if any of you ever seen the movie Dune, but I feel like I've been attacked by a Harkonian, and they put you know, what they call a heart plug, you know, and they can just at will, if they don't like you, they just put boink, and you're done, you know. But anyhow, I've got one of those, but they're actually, it's an innie rather than an outie. That's where they're putting in like a chemo pump. They'll hook me up, and I have to carry this pump around on a little lanyard. I always tell them get plenty of chest hairs in there, so that if I tug on that little line, I don't pull it out of there. Never had the capillary line pull out of my port, but yeah. And then, so 2 days of wearing that pump, and then I'm off for the next week, and then the week, so every other week they hook you up and run that thing through you for, I think it's going to be 6 cycles again, and I'll be in a holding pattern until UCSF, yeah, there it is, UCSF calls me back and asks me for a time and date where I can make it down there for everything. I'm hoping to get it done in 2 days, where we meet and talk on one day, and then go through the body changes for me. Yeah, pooping out a hole on my belly, and then what I call a Ken butt. The women get a Barbie butt. But yeah, kind of weird. Definitely not how I planned my life to go. Man, it makes me wonder. Everybody in kinetics that does big stuff gets hit hard somehow. Bad stuff happens to good people, and bad stuff happens to mediocre people. That's probably, me. I haven't gotten the mediocre yet. I thought I had it wrapped up the other day, or other year, but no, somebody else was banging for the mediocre and got it. But yeah, Spirit of the Glorious Founder is where we've managed to make our claim. We've got, what, 2 of those, I think? Yeah. Anyhow, so back to, yeah, imagine that with, instead of 3 pilots each or for each wheel, 4, so it'd be a total of 16 pilots. And I don't know if I showed you how it steers, but it's centerless steering. There's no connecting point between this group of pedalers back here and this group of pedalers up here. There's no single, there's an X pattern, and it gives it a really good center of gravity in turns, so it'll be less likely to flip in a turn than a mid-body steer with a single pivot point in the middle that can't, see how it separates like that? Believe it or not, that changes where the CG is on this thing. So it'll still be high center in the turns, just because it is a tall machine to get all that ground clearance. And these are supposed to represent Hoosier tires, because that's what I have, but I've designed it so it actually could handle bigger wheels if I could come across something bigger. But for now, we'll build it with Hoosiers in mind, and if we can have bigger wheels, we will use it. But the sprint car tires I'm learning my way around those. And if these are still holding air from, I filled them before last year's race in place, and they're still holding air. And the secret trick is getting those rims super clean, cleaning the inside of the Hoosier tire super clean. And then when I put it all together, I take that valve stem out and I pump in a ½ gallon of tire slime. Put the valve stem back in, fill it up with air. I've already got it seated on the rim at this point, by the way, and which means taking it up to 50 psi. And when these seat, they make a loud boing like a beach ball, which you can, it's leaning up against the wall, but you get it out on its open and you slap it like that when it's all inflated like that, and it rings like a big heavy beach ball. But there's more of them over here and over here. I have them off the sculpture right now so that I can save room in here and get past, like this, the sprint car tire would be right here in the way and you wouldn't be able to get to the workbench. Anyhow, this has gone on 13 minutes, so got a 15-minute limit, so I don't bore people to death. But yeah, last minutes will be spent. There it is. It's a 10-seated sculpture. It can float on water. It can go across sand. It's got individual workstations where they can each select 24 speeds, and then on top of those 24 speeds, there's a main gearbox here with highway gear, just kind of hilly gear, and then super low sand gear right here. And that all is shiftable from up front. And basically that takes all 10 pilots and puts them in highway gear, or all 10 pilots and puts them in super low sand gear, or all 10 pilots and puts them in regular kind of hilly sand gear. And let's see, These are part of the float arms. You could just have to use your imagination here. And the pontoons. Okay, we're up to 15 minutes and some change. Again, this is Kinetic Carl signing off here in Eureka, California.